Alright, so add or subtract. So I'm first going to make them into improper fractions, and I do that with the little check mark thing, okay? So 1 times 3 is?
3.
Plus 1? 4, so 4/3 plus. And then 2 times 5 is?
10.
Plus 2?
12.
Okay. Common denominator of 3 and 5? 15. Okay, so looking at the bottoms, if you're not sure, common denominators, 3 and 5, 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, so I'm going to multiply the 3 by 5 to change that one with a denominator of 15, and this one by 3. So 5 times 4, that's 20 fifteenths. 12 times 3, that's 36 fifteenths. And once they're a common denominator, I just add the numerators and get 56 fifteenths. And if you need to reduce, then you should. If not, you stop and leave it. This one does not reduce. Okay? If you want to make it back into a mixed number, that's fine. But I'm totally okay with this. So that's like 3 and 11 fifteenths. But I am definitely happy with that. Okay? Alright, number 2, same deal. Let's change them to improper fractions first. So 3 times 2 is? Plus 1? 7. So 7 halves minus, and then 1 times 3? Plus 2? 5. So 5/3. Alright, so let's look at our denominators here. 2 and 3. 6 would be my common denominator. And once again, if you're not sure, just multiply them together. 2 times 3 is 6, so we're making them 6. Okay, so what am I going to multiply this one by? 3. And this one I'm going to multiply by 2. Alright, so 3 times 7 is?
21.
Yes, 21 6, and then 5 times 2 is?
10.
So 10 6, which would be? 21 minus 10?
11.
So 11 6, good job. Or if you make that 1 and 5 6, that's still the same thing, and that's okay. Alright, let's grab out our homework from yesterday. And if we've got any questions, we can talk about that for a second, and then we'll pass it up.
This is how you know you've got 2 teachers that think alike. Does anybody notice anything?
Yeah.
Same colors.
Not just the same color. Like mine has ruffles.
And the ruffles, yeah. Oh, okay. Alright, question. Yep. Did anybody have any questions that you'd like me to talk about? Yep.
Number 2.
Alright, number 2. Alright, so number 2 on that worksheet that we did. So 6 and 5 6 minus 3 and 1/4. Alright, so changing them to improper. 6 times 6 is? Plus 5? So 41 6, and then 3 times 4 is? 13 fourths. Now, common denominator here. 12. If that didn't work for you, then make them 24. 6 times 4 is 24. That's totally fine. You'll just have to reduce at the end, and it's not that big of a deal, okay? But 12, if you're wondering how is she getting 12? Count by 6s. 6, 12, 18, so on. And 4s. 4, 8, 12. 12 is what I would make them. Okay? So what do I multiply 6 by? What do I multiply 6 by? 2. And what about 4? 3. Okay. So 2 times 41 is 82 12ths. 13 times 3 is 39 12ths. Woo! And 82 minus 39? 43. 43 12ths. And then you need to check to see if you can reduce it. So 43, that's a prime number, so no, that's it. Alright, question?
Do you have a question on this? Or are you ready to go on to another?
Yeah, I'm ready to go on to another.
Yeah.
4 and 5, let's try one of them. So choose which one you think the most that you have the most trouble with. 5? Okay. Okay, so we're going to change them to improper fractions. So 3 times 3 is? 9 plus 2, 11. times 7 is?
14.
Plus 5? 19 sevens. All right, let's look at those denominators. What do you think, Timmy? 21. And once again, just take 3 times 7. 3 times 7 is 21. Okay? So this one I'm going to multiply by 7, and this one by 3. So 7 times 11, that's 77 over 21. 19 times 3, that's 57 over 21, right? Yeah. Okay. And then I'll just add my numerators. So 77 plus 57, that's 14. Carry my 1, that's 8, that's 30, 134. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I got it right.
Yep. I'm just gonna make sure math's right there. 77 plus 57, that's 140. 134, I mean. Yeah. Come on. 27.
You
Oh,
see yours,
I
right?
can't read today. 21 is only divisible by 3 and 7. So if 134 is not divisible by 3, which it's not.
How'd you do
7
that so fast, Miss Wilson? How do you know 134 isn't divisible by 3?
Well, because I thought in my head, not your
Oh, you didn't use my method.
I didn't use your
How many
method.
people use my method?
Because I did 3 times 4 is 12, which is 14 left over, and the 3 didn't go into 14.
Yeah. Or you could have done 1 plus 3 plus 4. What's 1 plus 3 plus 4? 8. Is 8 divisible by 3? No. So when you do that method, there's only 3 numbers that's going to come down. Keep adding until you just have one number. It will be a 3, a 6, or a 9. If you don't get a 3, a 6, or a 9, then it's not divisible by 3. That just takes practice. That takes a lot of practice.
All right, I want to see what you did. So even if you have one of them still blank or you know it's not right, just go ahead and make sure your name is on it, because I know there wasn't a place for your names. Put your name on it, pass it up. Homework tells me so much, you all. It tells me what you got on your own, what you didn't get.
So homework is practice.
Homework is practice.
How many people in here play a sport? How many people play a sport? Keep your hand up. How many people play an instrument? No. Keep your hand up if you play a sport. This is either or. How many people play a sport? Keep your hand up. Don't put your hand down. How many people play an instrument, a musical instrument? Okay.
How many people play video games?
Okay. Hands down. So your homework is your practice. My boys at the high school, they're both graduated, but they played football. And they're pretty good at Silver Creek. Okay? So, there were times, the thing that they hated the most, we'll see if Coach Wilson would have agreed with this with his kids, they hated doing up-downs. Does anybody know what an up-down is?
Yes.
If you don't know what an up-down is, it's also called a burpee. How many people know what burpees are? So you jump up. I'm not going to do one because one will knock me out. You jump up, you go down, you do a push-up, and then you jump back up. And they had to do those sometimes in full gear if they didn't listen to it. They had to do that in football practice. Hand down. Do you think, why in the world did they do burpees in football practice? My oldest son Josh was the quarterback. Do you think he called a play in the game? And he goes back and he's looking to see if he's got a receiver, and he goes, "Hey, defense, wait just a second. Coach Wilson told me to do some burpees." And he did burpees in the game? No. What would have happened to him? Oh my gosh, it would have been like the funniest sack ever. They probably would have picked him up and taken him to the other end zone. Okay? But why would they do that in practice? Because it was physical conditioning. It made him better. So when you're
mental
it's mental. If you don't practice, when you do the test, are you going to be any good at it? No. Do you practice stuff in soccer that you don't do in the game? Don't you run a lot in soccer? My middle son Ben, his girlfriend's playing soccer Division I at WKU. And she talks about going out and running miles. Is there any point in the soccer game the coach goes, "All right, Angel, do you play soccer?" You just go, "All right, Angel, get out there, run 2 miles, and then get in the game." Does he do that? No, but do you might run a lot in practice? Yeah, because it's going to make you better in the game. Your homework's to get you ready for the game. What's the game?
Today's the homework.
The test.
What's the
What's the test?
Today's the
Yes.
I was gonna say, he could have also done burpees because he did
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, we're going to get chugging along on this. Today is about integers on a number line. Yay! of you? And we're ready to go. Everybody got one? Okay. Alright, so integers. We talked about integers a little bit the other day. Integers are positive or negative whole numbers and can be represented with a number line model. So it says mark a point on both 5. So I'm going to go to 5, positive 5, and negative 5 on that number line below.
I have a question. Do
Yeah.
you want it actually on the line, or do you want it? Can they do it above the line?
Either.
Okay.
I will always put mine on it.
Okay. No, that's fine. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure. I don't want to.
Okay, what do you all notice? Does anybody notice anything about those? Sakshi?
They're both like the number, that 5 on the right is a positive, on the left it's a negative.
What else do you notice about like what the way it looks like on a number line? Seamus is back there flying out of a seat.
They're both evenly like put far away from each other. Equal.
They're both equal from what?
from 0.
From 0, yes. So, we're going to write in here, so both 5 and negative 5 are the same, or you can put the equal distance away from 0. And if Sakshi was right, they're just opposites of each other. One's at negative 5, one's at positive 5.
Yeah. Is anybody on it right now?
My Google Meet won't work for some reason. I need to.
So, with the way Seamus said, they're equal distance. They're the same apart from 0. That's what we're moving towards right now. We're moving towards something called the absolute value. And the absolute value of a number is the distance, like I said up at the top, the distance away from 0 on the number line. So absolute value is distance. Yep.
Could we put length? Yeah.
What do you know about distance just in life, not even in math? Alright, James.
Like
If you're gonna tell me you went some distance, what are you gonna tell me about the distance? It's always what?
it's always like away from people things, like you want a distance away from people or like
Okay. But like in terms of like lengths and things.
Centimeter.
Timmy?
I ran a mile.
You ran 1 mile, okay. What about any other distances? How else could you describe a distance? Yeah.
I flew my ball
10 yards, okay. Anybody else want to share one, Seamus?
you flew.
Okay.
Never mind.
You flew 1,038 feet in the air.
Yes.
Okay, Sakshi?
The fence is 18 yards long.
18 yards long. What do you notice about all the numbers that we're saying about distance? They're all what kind of numbers? Positive numbers. Distance is a positive number, okay? So when I talk about distance, I can't ever call it a negative number because I can't say that I went negative 3 miles yesterday. Like, that doesn't make sense. So distance is always positive, okay? The magnitude, what, Seamus?
I was wondering if I look backwards, would that be negative?
No.
No. Okay.
It'd still be positive at the start. So the magnitude of a number is always the absolute value of a number. And one thing we're going to add on here that's not on here is absolute value is always positive. And I would probably put a star next to that like I did there. Okay? Absolute value is always a positive number. here, these two lines, okay? Those two lines are our absolute value symbols. That's how I know that I'm taking the absolute value of something. So the way that you read this right here is that it's the absolute value of negative 5. That's the way that you would read that. The absolute value of negative 5. So like if I read this one, this would read the absolute value of negative 8, the absolute value of negative 1, the absolute value of 3, the absolute value of negative 4.5, the absolute value of 6, okay? Those lines are absolute value symbols. Is everybody okay with that? Have you all seen that before?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Alright, so this next little section here says determine the absolute value and then mark each point on the number line. So we just said absolute value always makes the number positive, okay? So when I look at A right here, this is the absolute value of negative 8, which is positive 8. So I'm going to go to my number line, and I'm going to put a dot on 8, and I'm going to label that A. Why am I labeling it A?
Because that's where.
Because it's A. Well, let's get it going. If it pertains to this, go for it.
If it's like that, would that be a negative for? No, so it's still.
Absolute value will always make a number positive because absolute value talks about the distance of something.
Okay.
Alright, so B, the absolute value of negative 1 is positive 1. So I'm going to put that as B. So if you didn't hear what Seamus was asking, he said, well, what about the absolute value of 3? Does that change the sign to negative? No. Absolute value will always be a positive number because absolute value talks about the distance away something is from 0, and distance is always positive. So the absolute value of 3 is 3. So I'm going to put it on positive 3. Timmy, is your mom blown today?
I thought you said mom.
Alright, absolute value of negative 4.5. What would that be?
4.5.
Positive 4.5. Ooh, now on a number line, where would I put 4.5? Right? Between 4 and 5. Perfectly between 4 and 5. So perfect halfway between there. And then the absolute value of 6 is 6 because absolute value just keeps it positive. So I'm going to go to 6 and put E. What do you notice about all your absolute values on that number line? What do you notice about them all?
They're all positive.
They're all positive. They're all to the right of
The number line.
0. And 0. They're all to the right of 0 because absolute values are distance, and distance is always positive. That's why absolute value always makes the number positive. Okay? Alright, so the next part says complete the table below. So they gave us a list of numbers. They want us to find its absolute value, and then they want you to tell them what the opposite of that number is. Okay? So I'm going to do the first couple with you. Okay, so they give me the number negative 6, and they want me to find the absolute value of negative 6, which is 6, positive 6. So I'm going to put a 6 there. Alright, is everybody with me okay?
Yeah.
Alright, so then it says, what is the opposite of this number? So what's the opposite of negative 6?
6.
Positive 6, so this is also going to be 6. Alright, we're going to do the next one together. 18, so that's the number. What is the absolute value of 18? 18, because absolute value always makes the number positive. Okay, now, here's the next question. What is the opposite of 18?
Negative.
Negative 18. can you all fill in the rest of that for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm gonna walk around, make sure we're all alive and kicking.
Okay, so right now when there's someone, since the number is negative, so it's the opposite of that.
No. We're talking about that number. So double check your time on that one, okay?
What is the opposite of negative?
That's good. Come on over on me. Right.
How you doing? Yes. Okay, good job.
Alright, so absolute value of 34 is 34. What's the opposite of 34?
Negative 34.
Okay. Alright, absolute value of negative 67.
67.
Opposite of negative
Negative
67?
67.
67, positive. And then absolute value negative 128.
128. 128.
And then opposite.
Positive
Positive
128.
128. Now, I don't know if anybody already answered this question yet,
Yes.
but it says using the table, determine which two columns could be added to get a sum of 0. So looking at the three columns, the number column, the absolute value column, and the opposite column, which two of those columns could always be added together to get 0?
Oh,
Opposite?
And what other column?
Absolute value.
Don't listen to them.
Haley?
The number and its opposite?
The number and its opposite. Because what do you know about a number and its opposite? That they're opposite signs, and when you add them together, they're inverses, they're complete opposites. They equal 0. So what's negative 6 plus 6? 0. What's 18 plus negative 18? 0. What's 34 plus negative 34? 0. So when you take the number and its opposite, you can always add them together to get 0.
I'm gonna watch my time, so I'm on my Wednesday
I'm
times.
telling you, I have no clue.
Alright, so moving on to the back. It says, now try modeling the following problems with a number line. So here's my question. On a number line, if I subtract something or go negatives with something, which way do I go on a number line? To the left. When you subtract things on a number line, you move to the left. What about if you add things? To the right. Alright, so we're going to start here at the top with number 1. Okay, so it says, now try modeling I cannot talk. Oh my gosh. Now try modeling the following problems with a number line. Okay, so we're starting at negative 1. So I will put a dot on negative 1. So right here, okay? And I'm adding 4 to it. So which way on a number line would I move if I'm adding 4? To the right. So I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. So negative 1 plus 4 is 3.
So Ms. Wilson, I have a question.
Yeah.
When I look at these, should I have gone ahead and put the negative 1 and the 4 on the number line? Is this like graphing?
No. So if you were graphing them, then it would say just to graph the numbers. But this is asking for an actual operation. So we're going to look in the middle. If it's adding to something, we're going to move that first number to the right. If we're subtracting something, we're going to move it to the left. But what if you're subtracting a negative? I don't know if we get that far yet. What's minus a negative?
we switched them.
Plus a positive. Yeah.
I did this last year. If you had 2 negatives, everybody put your fingers up.
I always do. I always call it the Power Ranger. Double negative is.
Oh, there you go. So we've got that Miss Wilson did, or I always did. It's like magnets. What do magnets do?
Stick
They
together.
draw each other and boom. There you go. Plus everybody do it.
Sometimes they
Put
push
your fingers up like this.
Watch out.
I don't care how dumb you feel. Put your fingers up like this. Jaden, put your fingers up like this. Ready? It's a magnet. They're drawn together. They're drawn together. They're drawn together. Boom. Positive. So two negatives make a
Positive.
positive.
Alright, so let's look at this one. Number 2, 1 plus negative 4. So I'm going to go to positive 1 because that's the number I'm starting with. But I'm going to add a negative 4. So if I'm going negative, if I'm adding a negative number, which way am I going to move, Angel G? To the left. Yes. I'm adding a negative number. If I was adding a positive number, I would go to the right. But I'm adding a negative number, so I'm going to go to the 4, or to the 4, left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that puts me at negative 3. Okay. This next one, I'm going to start at negative 1, and then I want you to move it by adding negative 4 to it. So look at what I did when up at the top when I added negative 4 to the last time. So take it and put your little lines on it. So think about if you're adding a negative number, which way you go. Alright, so which way did I go? Left, because I'm adding negative 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that put me at negative 5. I guess number 4, we really don't need number line with this one.
No.
1 plus 4, I'm at 1, but I'm adding a positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, don't touch it. Where's that pen? Do you have red pen or is your nose bleeding? Is it blood or is it ink?
Yes, blood.
Okay. Do you get nosebleeds?
No.
You've
David
never,
does.
you've never gotten a nosebleed?
Well, I have, but it rarely happens.
Alright, so we're going to move on to number 5. And this is a little bit subtracting here. Okay? So that's kind of what we were talking about. When we subtract, we move to the left. But if I subtract a negative, that's 2 negatives, which makes it positive, okay? Alright, so I'm going to start with number 5 here. So 1 minus 4. So what number am I going to start at?
1.
1, and I'm going to subtract 4. And when I subtract 4, which way do I go?
Left.
To the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that puts me at negative 3. Alright, you all do number 6. Actually, do 2 of them for me. Do 6 and 8. I can walk around, make sure we're all alive again. Do 6 and 8.
But this graph doesn't match that. So where's negative 1? No, you don't erase anything. We'll just do the corrective. Where's negative 1? Okay. And then you're minusing 4, so minus goes to the left. So do left 4. So you got the important part right. You got negative 5 right. But if that was on some sort of silly standardized test, they would probably take points off for that.
Here you add 3 and you subtract 5. Should we count your 5?
Okay, this one. So you put your pencil on negative 1. Minus is going to minus goes to the subtract goes to the left. So put your pencil go or to the left.
started the wrong one. This is a positive 3, so you should have started at positive 3. Started
Yeah,
at
same thing.
negative 3.
So you're a negative one, so put your pencil on a negative one. Subtract, so
So
you go to the left.
But like, so we
Subtract
started
is
this
left.
number.
So if you look at your hands, this one is the L, this one's the left. So go 4 to the left. 1, 2,
Negative 4 is negative 3.
4. There you go.
And I
So
wanna
what's your
see the
answer?
movement on your paper, okay?
Oh,
Let's see that movement, yeah, so that we can just practice, because, you know, a lot of times, what if we are on,
How you doing?
you know, a standardized
So,
test, and you totally just blank
where
on
is
integers, but
negative
it's
one?
the no calculator section.
Negative one.
You can always draw your own number line and count
Negative.
like this,
Negative.
okay?
So pencil
Alright,
on there.
so, number 6.
And then
Negative 1, and I'm taking
Subtract to the
away
left.
4. Which way do
Middle.
I move it? I take things
Left.
left.
Forget left. So
1, 2,
left.
3, 4.
So left
So
4.
negative
Left.
5.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Alright, I'm starting at positive 3,
Moving. So
and I'm
answer.
taking away 5, so I'm
This
going to
one.
move to the
Left.
left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
But it is
which puts me at negative 2.
negative. Moving. Very good.
Yeah.
So 3.
Is
3.
that negative
Left.
4 or is that just a normal?
Left.
That's
L
a
left.
minus 4.
5. So 1.
So, I
2,
mean, yes,
3,
it's
4,
negative.
5.
Negative 1
Where are you?
minus 4
No, no. Right there.
and negative
Negative 2.
1 plus negative 4 are the same thing.
Perfect. Good job.
Alright, let's look at 7 here. So negative 1, so that's where I'm going to start. But I'm taking away a negative 4, and that's what we were talking about. When I subtract a negative, what did we say happens?
Positive.
Subtract a negative.
Positive.
It turns positive. So when you see 2 negatives back to back like this, we're going to change. We're going to change that to plus a positive. So this is going to change to be negative 1 plus 4, because it's minus a negative. It's a negative negative, which changes to that plus a positive. Okay? So I'm at negative 1, and I'm going to add positive 4 to it now. So which way am I going to move it? To the right, because I'm adding a positive 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that puts me at 3. Okay, let's look at this one, number 9. 3 minus negative 5. So when I subtract a negative, minus a negative changes to plus a positive. So that 3 minus negative 5 is actually going to change to what? 3 plus 5. Minus a negative is plus a positive. So if I start at 3 here, and I add positive 5 to it, which way am I going to go? To the right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that gets me at 8. Alright, you want to try number 10. And guys, I want to see on your paper, on your homework tonight, I want to see that movement. I want to see some lines showing me that you're counting on that number line. Because if not, you may have just used a calculator and not actually try. Okay, so you can always use a calculator if you want to go back at the end and check them. That's totally fine. But I want to see you do them yourself too. Did it. So I started at 3 here. That is, so this is minus.
I have not. It's pretty cross.
Yeah, it's just when the 2 negatives are like up against each
A
other.
long time ago. A long time ago. Was there somebody that looked like me that maybe subbed? 4th grade at the elementary?
Angela, you good? You little
I'm
sanitize
talking
hands? Touch anything?
20 years ago. Probably before your time. Or you're not 20 yet, are you?
Alright, so negative 3 is where I'm starting. And then I see that it's minus a negative. When a negative is up against another negative, minus a negative becomes plus a positive. So that becomes negative 3 plus 5. And that minus negative means I'm going to move it to the right 5 places. places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which gets me at 2. Are there any questions that we want to talk about that or clarify anything? All right, we're going to do a little bit of practice with this.